We're going to continue working with rational expressions. Previously we looked at simplifying them, multiplying and dividing them. Now we're going to look at adding and subtracting rational expressions. And I'd like to start with examples with fractions that are just numbers and then apply the same ideas to the more complicated expressions with variables. So let's start with this simple example, 5/12 plus 11/12. Of course, you remember that when you're adding fractions, you keep the denominator the same, 12ths, but you just add the numerators. So 5/12 plus 11/12 is going to be 5 plus 11 over 12. 5 plus 11 is 16, so that'll be 16/12. And when you get your result, we combine those two fractions into one. You should simplify it if all possible, and I think you can see that that would simplify to 4/3. So that would be the result that you would want from adding those two fractions. Subtracting fractions, it's pretty much the same thing. You have to have the same denominator. Here we have the denominator of 6, and then you just subtract the numerators. Okay, 5 minus 1, that'll give you 4 over 6. And of course that will reduce to 2/3. You should always reduce it. And you want to do the same thing with rational expressions. You want to reduce it at the end if at all possible. Let's take an example with rational expressions that are a little more involved. Here we have, they both have a denominator of x plus 1, x plus 1, so we don't have to worry about changing the denominator. So we'll just take the numerator, this numerator, and subtract that one. So I want to write this as one fraction with a denominator of x plus 1. I'll take this numerator x, and then I want to subtract that numerator. Here's where you have to be careful. When you're subtracting, you need to subtract this entire quantity. Remember, this is grouped together by the fraction bar, so we have to go minus not just 3x, but the entire thing, 3x plus 2. So that's how you could rewrite it as one fraction. Now let's simplify the numerator. And to remove these parentheses, it will be x minus 3x, but then also minus 2, distributing the minus, and on the bottom I still have x plus 1. Let's simplify the numerator. We're going to have negative 2x minus 2 over x plus 1. And as I said earlier, with using numeric fractions or rational expressions, you should try to reduce it if you can't. So at this point, excuse me, we should try to factor like we did earlier with rational expressions. So the denominator we're not going to be able to factor. That's already in simplest form as far as factors goes. But the numerator I could factor out a negative 2, or a positive 2 for that matter, but negative 2 is going to work out well. If I take that out, what I'll be left with is x plus 1. Then doing what we did in the last lesson, we can divide out these two factors, x plus 1, x plus 1, and this will simplify down to negative 2. Of course, we need to carry along the restriction or the limit on the domain because we know that x, even though we got negative 2, we have to remember that x cannot be equal to negative 1.